Hey, Modern Thirst now has collector's coins available for purchase. To celebrate the end of 2019 and our 6th anniversary in January of 2020, we printed 100 specially designed coins. They're individually numbered and they make perfect Glencairn glass covers. If you're interested in purchasing, they're $10 each, including shipping. So to order them, you can go to ModernThirst.com/shop. And remember, we only printed 100, so there's not a ton of these out there. We're also relaunching our Patreon site. If you join the coin club there, you'll automatically get new versions of our coins as they're released 2 to 3 times per year. And if you join the t-shirt club, you'll get the coins plus a Modern Thirst t-shirt twice per year. So check it out. All right, here we are. It's end of 2019, and we've got almost the entire group here from Modern Thirst. But we are going to do our year-end group tasting here. And we bought a bottle of Kentucky Owl Rye Batch 3. It's a 10-year-old rye from Kentucky. They don't really disclose who the distiller was or the mash bill or any fun stuff like that. But we thought it would be fun to do kind of a group tasting. So I bought a bottle of that. I sent out samples to all the guys here on the call. I'm Bill Straub. I'm the editor of Modern Thirst. So let's just kind of go around the horn and let everybody introduce themselves. Matt Gates.
Here I am down here at the bottom. Matt Gates, I'm the co-founder of Modern Thirst, but you don't hear from me much because these guys are the real experts. But it's fun to be here. We had a lot of technical difficulties getting on here, but we're all happy to be here now.
Bill Scott.
My name is Bill Scott, and I am website technical support and graphic support.
We like to call him Other Bill since there's 2 Bills.
Or just Bill Scott, because everybody since college has been calling me by both my first name and my last name together the entire time. So,
Wes
Jolly, the world whiskey writer for Modern Thirst, and I feel like I'm on Hollywood Squares.
And Nick?
Yeah, I'm Nick Krieger. Kind of just seasoning all things spirits, I guess. Been writing about this stuff going well over a decade now, and it's happy to be here with you guys for the first time. Can enjoy this whiskey with y'all. So,
and who's that other guy? Didn't we miss somebody? No, I think we're good.
Timothy Van Riper, staff writer, whiskey nerd, single barrel snob, destroyer of all.
Fair enough. I'm drinking a little 4-Gate Foundation today. I was going to drink one of our other batches, but since they're all barrel finished and we're getting ready to drink something that's not barrel finished, I figured I would go with the one that isn't. So anybody else have anything in addition to the Owl to kind of get your palates going?
Absolutely. I'm drinking a Pendergast. I don't know if you guys ever had that before, but
wow.
Kind of like a take on the classic Manhattan. A little bit of orange juice and some orange bitters with all the other niceties, we'll say.
You probably need to post a recipe for that, huh?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah, get me a little bit of water too, just so we have a proper palate cleanser too. Don't want to mess up the whiskey. So, yep.
I have batch 2 of Kentucky Owl that I'm going to compare with batch 3, and I also have this that I may crack a little bit later. That is a pick from 5280, which is one of 25 barrels from Medley this year, 126 proof.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
okay, his trump's mine.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm rolling with the Old Forester 1920 Prohibition style.
Nice. It's one of my favorites.
Good one.
It's one of mine too.
I'm going back and forth from the Wild Turkey that I just killed, Wild Turkey 101, and JTS Brown Bottled in Bond.
So yeah, Timothy, we're kind of on the same page. I have the rare breed that I just killed.
There you go. Go.
And some water.
Nice.
As well.
I guess before we really get started on the tasting, just a couple of notes about the site. It's been a great year. We're just lots of views, lots of people tuning in to see what we have to say on videos. We're going to try to do some more video work in the coming year. Timothy and I have some ideas for some kind of funny, off the beaten path type stuff, whiskey related, that we're going to do video wise this year, and we're going to test out my skills as a director and editor of videos and maybe pulling some extras to do some scripted stuff for you. So hopefully that'll be fun. So keep an eye on the site for that. We also just got in Modern Thirst Challenge coins. I'm not going to put this in front of the camera because last time my camera never refocused. We have collector coins from ModernThirst.com, and they're available on our website at ModernThirst.com/shop. They're $10 a piece. That includes the shipping. And I think Timothy's the only one here who has his, just because I saw him earlier today and gave him one, but you guys will be getting one in the mail here shortly as well. So if anybody watching is collecting the whiskey coins, check it out. Let's get into the tasting.
Excellent.
So this is a batch 3 of Kentucky Owl. 10 years old. It's the rye, 114 proof. This is not barrel proof, despite the fact that it's really high. They proof all of these to a proof. I don't know why they do that in particular. I guess they just kind of like to get a little, stretch the whiskey a little bit more by adding water. But this is bottle number 11 out of 2018 for batch 3. I think I paid $230 or $240 for this.
It's not bad.
But I've seen it a little bit cheaper once since then. But we wanted to do something nice for this rather than something a little more easily obtainable. So this was kind of right up our alley. Plus, I really like the rye. So, all right, what do you guys smell on this thing? Because I don't know about you, but to me, it's really dark.
It is. Also, two things that I think is worth noting. Apparently, there's a lot of older stock in this as well. 10 years is the youngest. And don't compare it to the other batches, because it is not. They're not trying to, or he's not trying to remake past batches. This is a new batch altogether.
Boy, I'm getting banana bread out the wazoo on that one. I don't know if anyone else is.
Definitely, and orange too, for sure.
I was gonna say orange and a little bit of clove.
Yep, I would agree with that too.
Yeah, other baking spices probably.
Man, I can't get past that banana bread. I really like that.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot of nutty banana bread characteristics for sure.
I was going to say some walnut.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely walnut. It's I would say more
what else are you getting out of that?
I would agree with the baking spices and the walnut. And I have batch 2 sitting here right beside it. And as Timothy pointed out, the nose is definitely different between 2 and 3.
Cool.
I'm getting a lot more bourbon smell to it than I normally would, but I'm mostly comparing that to the MGP rye that I make. So it's very different.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot more citrusy.
Get like a dark caramel, like a darker caramel.
Yeah,
in that also.
That's kind of where I was going with it. Yeah, caramel.
Almost burnt brown sugar and kind of like a graham cracker type of pie crust.
For sure, and really a lot of oak, a lot of barrel. I mean, couldn't be more present if it wanted to be. So
no.
I got to be honest. To me, if I were to say what does this smell like, it smells a lot like Old Forester rye and Old Forester bourbon.
You guys ever make brown butter sauce?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
You know that creamy nuttiness you get when you make it?
Sure.
That's like in the background.
Definitely, even almost has like a Christmassy, eggnoggy kind of smell to it as well. So,
did we say that we think that Owl is MGP sourced?
No, this is made in Kentucky.
Okay.
So we don't know where it was sourced. It's probably more than one distillery.
Got it.
Knowing their track record and knowing that it's multiple ages blended together, it's likely more than one distillery. They've probably been buying stuff for a while.
All right. Okay. I was at a distillery up here in Michigan, and they have what they call, spirits that they had help from others. That's kind of how they put it, because they aren't old enough to have had a 15-year rye. And the 15-year rye I had this afternoon smells a good deal like this. That's why I was wondering.
It's amazing color. That copper orange color on it for 10 years old is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really even peered into it, but you're right.
I'm holding this up next to our foundation batch, which is no water added to our foundation batch, by the way. So this is as minimal filtering as you can get. And it's 9 years, 9 months, but there's probably in this glass maybe 2 drops of that. The rest of it is closer to 11 years old or more. And they are the exact same color, and they've added water to this. I mean, there is no difference in darkness and in color between those.
That's pretty
That's
cool.
just amazing to me.
But
That's
we have no
after adding
proof.
water.
Wow.
We have no idea what the barrel proof was, do we? On this,
No,
so there might
no.
not. Be
I'm going to guess it wasn't much higher than this, but
there might not be much water.
yeah.
I don't know if you guys heard me earlier, but Deadman did go on record saying that there is a decent amount of older stock in here besides 10. 10 is just the youngest that's in it.
Yeah, on the palate,
Ah, I'm tasting now. Okay.
it's interesting. It's
Permission to taste.
it almost
Oh,
tastes
wow.
a little bit more like an Indiana rye than a typical Kentucky rye. It doesn't taste like it's a real high corn to me, despite that nose.
Man, a lot of dill,
It's a-
lot of mint.
Yeah, I was gonna say the mintiness just came through.
Mhm.
That's the
a little
Spicy mint.
Mhm.
There's a little alcohol, a little ethanol on the front there.
Yeah. Definitely hits mid, like front and mid palate too for that alcohol burn.
I almost kind of feel like this one, is kind of falls into that category of a bit over oaked. I think they may have let it go a little bit too far. I mean, the oak is really there, probably more than it really needs to be. So
Those
it's
barrels
probably good, but
turn bitter on the finish.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's definitely some tan in there. It's not completely drying out my palate, but it's
Yeah.
very
It's
very
there.
late in the palate is where
Yeah.
the dryness comes in, and
I think it's enjoyable, but I do agree that they're probably stretching the limit of the juice in here.
I
They
definitely,
needed to get it in the bottle.
yeah. It's still very good. I don't know if I would call that a $200 plus bottle, but if I paid, let's say about $100 or so for that, I'd be reasonably happy with it. I think it really kind of to me tastes like it falls more into that kind of category of spirit. But I guess you can command whatever you get, right? So
When you source whiskey, it's kind of hard to compare. If you distill it yourself, the cost of the liquid is it's a fraction of what it is to buy it already aged. So, and that's something that I've learned since we started Foregate, that it's just insanely expensive to buy aged whiskey and put it in a bottle.
I believe that.
I mean,
For sure.
if you distill it and you have a big still, let's say a Heaven Hill or Wild Turkey or something like that, a barrel of whiskey costs you a couple of bucks. Yeah, I mean the actual wood of the barrel costs more than actually distilling the whiskey, and then you're paying $2 a year in taxes and insurance. I mean, it doesn't cost you anything.
No,
When I'm buying a 10-year-old bourbon, I'm paying $4,000 or more. Rye's the same way, at least $4,000. It could be 6 or 7. So,
Yeah.
It's a different economy of scale there.
It's interesting on their proofing on the batch 2, they proofed it at 50.9%, and this is 57. So quite a difference there between the two batches.
I have water here. I wish I had brought my eyedropper or something, because I'm really interested in, when I drink this down a little bit, in what water does to this.
I was just thinking that same thing.
I agree, and in fact, I was just about to do that actually, Bill.
I think the lower proof on batch 2 is actually a little bit more pleasant on the palate than batch 3. So I think it would take the water well.
I think
gonna
it
do something.
would probably calm that bitterness on the tan.
Yeah, that's what I love everything about this except that like mid palate, mid finish bitterness that comes through.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a lot. I don't know if you guys had the that 12-year-old bullet rye they put out earlier this year.
Yeah, I've got
That was really spicy and dill pickle, and it didn't finish bitter at all. It just was, man, I love that thing.
some good
The real thing, Tim, because I actually ate a dinner that had chicken that was cooked with dill, and I didn't know if it was just me or not. So I guess
it's dill. It's dill and mint up front for sure. And I will say this: water made it a little more bitter.
Yeah, definitely.
On the end of the palate,
That is weird.
do you get some nuts? That walnut that we got, some of us got on the nose. I get a nuttiness on the end of the very end of the palate.
Yep. And it got more pronounced with a little bit of water.
Oh, I don't like it with water. It's better without water.
I do agree, and it almost has come with like a when
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm
too
thrilled.
much. Like, you don't want a burnt toast kind of flavor in your whiskey. That's not
It's like
good.
It's like
No.
toasted walnut
dislike
shells, and burnt caramel.
I
And
don't
just
dislike it. My question is whether or not this is the best presentation of this whiskey they could have done. That's really my question. Now, you can't unage it, so if you've got it and it's older, you're gonna have to do something with it. Maybe a little less of the older stuff and a little bit more of the 10-year-old stuff might have gone well. I don't know. And if water's making it worse, maybe barrel proof would have been the way to go. But that's an economic decision more than anything else.
Sure.
I wish it was spicier.
I like it. I don't like the finish on it, but I really like the palate for the most part until it gets that barrel tannic kind of.
To me, it goes nose is the best, then the palate, then the finish.
Wes,
I think it's spicier at the beginning, and then
I hate it.
I agree.
Wes, you've got 2 and 3 next to you. If you had to compare the two, what's the biggest difference?
Don't get as much of the nuttiness on 2, and I would say that 2, in my opinion, is a little bit more rounded. It's not as sharp on the dill and that walnut note that we're getting. I mean, I prefer the batch 2 over the batch 3, doing the side by side. I think they're both nice. I just don't. The finish to me on 2 is much better than the finish on 3.
Yeah, so water really killed the dill. Really killed everything on the front palate. All I get is that mid and rear palate with it.
I still haven't done water, and I feel like the more I drink it, the better the end palate is. I think the tannins are like I'm getting used to them, and I'm getting more of the original nose flavors at the very end.
I actually like I like dill. Timothy mentioned that Bullet 12 year, and it's a kind of a combination of briny and dill. I really liked it. For that, it's a taste that you're not going to reach for every time. Thinking, hey, I want some salty dill pickle whiskey, but I liked it. It was different. It was good. It wasn't unpleasant. So I kind of liked having a little bit of that on the front palate of this one. The water completely erased it, which is disappointing. But if I were judging this, I would say that it's going to score really well in the nose. It looks great. Front palate's really good. Starts to fall apart a little bit on the rear palate, and the finish I don't really care for. So it's certainly not going to be a great score. If I were scoring this Modern Thirst wise, it would probably be in the mid 80s.
Yeah, I think I would go low 80s, but it's not horrible. It is growing on me a bit as I drink it a little bit more, especially with a little bit of water. It's not horrible, but man, I tell you what, if I'm going to grade it on the price, I don't know if I'm going to give it a very good score on that. I would give it probably like an 81, 82.
I probably wouldn't give it a buy recommendation based on the price. Taste wise, I think it's, it has enough going for it. I could sit around and smell it for all day and be pretty happy with it.
Right.
I agree with that.
Most people won't do that though.
I think you made a really good point about the salty dill pickle thing though, because that's definitely, I get in that mood every once in a while. I'm like, I want a dill pickle rye, but for the price,
I need to try that.
Bullet 12 year rye, you can still get that same experience, because that, I'd say almost entirely through the Bullet 12 year rye is that minty dill pickle rye, which I think is fantastic.
Still the best rye out there.
And that's
Yeah.
what you got there.
We were going to do a tasting on that too.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you guys what.
That's when we did the live stream on a couple of years ago. I think Wes and I did, or Wes and Matt and I.
Yeah, I think we were going to add in more to the next time, but we didn't. But
overall, I think I would put this at I'm going to say 85. It's all right. It's not horribly flawed, but it's not anything I'm gonna recommend to anyone. It is flawed.
I'll go a notch above that.
Slogan. It's all right.
No, I'll go a notch above that, forgetting about price. Like, I'm not talking about like buy recommendations, but I'll go a notch above like 86, 87. But it just because of the complexity of it, there's a lot of uniqueness going on there. We all tasted different things at the beginning, on the nose and the palate and the finish. So
the nose is damn near worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I love that nose.
$200 plus prices of admission, but it's, you know, I love the nose on it. I really do. I could sit around and nose that for a long time.
Yep.
I almost
Side
said
by
after
side, I would probably give 3 and 86, 87 in that range. The 2, 89, 90.
Batch 1 and 2, I've had both of them, and I really did like them. And this one I do not like quite as much. Timothy, where are you on this?
I'd give this an 83.
83. So we have an 81 from Nick. 83.
82. I put it at 82. It's growing on me a little bit, Bill. So,
Bill Scott, where are you on this one?
I put it at about an 83 or 84, but I'd probably put a caveat in it for your person who happens to be checking out the blog, trying to figure out if they're going to like something new. I think that the finish tends to cause a little bit of harm on that, especially for the dollar figure. But I'd put it right around where you guys are.
Yeah, so we'll probably wind up right in the lower to mid 80s when we average them all together, and I'll probably put that in the comments down there for people to check out.
When we were nosing it, I really wanted to say that if it tastes anything like noses, we're in for a good treat, and
yeah,
did not.
And it did not.
Very appropriate for the season there, Matt.
Yep.
This tastes as good as it looks. We're in for a treat.
Well, I mean, if you put a bottle at $200+, it's got to really deliver. You know what I mean? You're really asking cost of the barrel, cost of the whiskey aside. You're putting a target on your back basically, and that whiskey better be awesome. And this one didn't quite meet the mark. It really just didn't. So it's not bad though. It's enjoyable. So
I agree with you. I mean, if this was something I'm buying for my personal use, I'm not going to be thrilled with the money spent. Now, this was Modern Thirst bought this because we wanted something a little bit high end price wise here at the end of the year for this, and it's worth it. I mean, I'm a little biased because I'm sitting here drinking it right next to one of my own bottles of roughly 10-year-old bourbon,
which is fantastic.
I would rather have that all day, every day.
Not for me. I'm not biased on your product. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's this was one of my favorites until the split stave came out, and now I'm all about split stave. I can't stop.
That split stave is my favorite, hands down.
But any other thoughts on this Kentucky Owl? Who's tried the confiscated yet?
Oh my God! Can we not even talk about that, please?
All I know is it's pretty polarizing. I haven't tried it, but the whiskey world is polarized over it. Cost versus what you're getting.
I don't know if it's really polarized so much as it is anti.
It's just it's not bad, but it's not great, man. It's like a hot mess.
It's it's not up to par with the other stuff. Now, granted, it's half the price of his regular Kentucky Owl releases, but I don't get it. I don't know what flavor profile they were going for because I can't really pick a good one out.
Oh shoot!
It's muddy and oaky.
I don't mean to be insulting to it at all. I just I'm not sure what they were going. I'm not sure what flavor he was blending towards there because I don't get it. Right. I don't get it.
I'm basing this off of all his other releases. I don't feel like he had a say in what was done there. I feel like that's a huge Stoli influence there, and it doesn't really taste like stuff that he does. I mean, I think we can all agree, Denman's an awesome blender. Like, yeah, he does a great job. All his batches of bourbon I've had are awesome. I'm a huge fan of batch 1 of the rye, but confiscated missed the mark. It's not him. There's something else going on there.
It was the first one that they distributed to 50 states, I think. It went out to all 50 states. And that's probably almost certainly a business decision. So Stoli obviously came to them and said, look, we're putting a lot of money and a lot of faith in this brand. We need to get it out there. Right. And there's a big difference between, his first few batches where he's blending 2 or 3 barrels together and could pick the absolute best barrels out there, and then having to blend for, 40,000 bottles or whatever it was. I mean, just being able to find that whiskey is tough. I mean, barrel bourbon tends to Joe Beatrice hasn't missed on that yet, but Kentucky Owl also tends to want to remain a Kentucky whiskey, Kentucky bourbon, and that limits their options. It really does. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of Barton out there right now, and Barton's a tough one to blend. It's such a peppery whiskey. It's it doesn't necessarily play well with all the other ones you can find on the market right now. And if that's going to be your base, that anywhere from 12 to 14 years right now of Barton, you've got to be real careful with how you blend it. That's something I've learned recently, that it's a finicky little beast. If you do it right, it's great. But it takes some work.
Well, batch 3 is still sucking the water out of my mouth.
Yeah, it's
the 1719. I definitely rate very highly, and I actually have a bottle of very old Barton as well. I think it's really one of the better budget bourbons there is. I still think Evan Black is the cream of the crop when it comes to the budget. Mm-hmm. But very old Barton is pretty good too, and Barton makes a lot of good stuff. But you're right, they kind of are like singular in their whatever it may be, flavor profile, their mission, whatever it may be. Definitely agree with you, Bill.
They just tend to be very the Barton mash bill, the primary one that's out there is a high rye mash bill. It's probably most similar to mash bill number 2 at Buffalo Trace in terms of the actual mash bill, if I had to guess. But it tends to be very one-dimensional. It's just black pepper. I just get it straight down the center of the palate. And the older it gets, the more pronounced that gets. And then they add bitter oak tannins to it. So when it's 10, 12 years old, you wind up with black pepper and oak, which sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And if you're trying to put 40,000 bottles of that out, you don't get the benefit of being able to pick out only the best barrels anymore. It's trying to find enough barrels just to put out a release. And that changes everything. It really does. You no longer have the ability to blend it to a specific taste. You're just kind of doing general, well, this tastes like that type of whiskey tastes that way, so we'll do 60-40 and then call it a day. Early on with Kentucky Owl, he was able to literally pick out these 2 barrels taste great together, so I'm going to use these 2 barrels. And then on batch 5, it was probably 8 barrels or 10 barrels or whatever the case was. But, confiscated, I imagine that's a very, very difficult challenge for him. Hey, we want to put out a bourbon we can distribute to 50 states. We don't have a distillery of our own. Go find some bourbon.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
For me, the value whiskey of the year is this right here. I can get it in the screen.
Oh, right.
It's $22. I can get 10 bottles of this for the Kentucky Owl. So I think that if I'm going to go for rye, I may go for that. I mean, I think that's a wonderful product that Old Forester put out.
So Old Forester in general, they make a lot of good stuff. They don't mess around.
Do you like a sweeter rye then?
I don't like the dill note as much on my rye, so I do like a little bit of the sweeter rye. And obviously, this is a barely rye that Old Forester's putting out. But I think they hit a home run with that for the price point and everything.
I was just more
watching, not really familiar when people call it a barley rye or a Kentucky rye. Most of the Kentucky distilleries, to be a bourbon, it has to be 51% corn. To be a rye, it has to be 51% rye instead of corn. Kentucky distilleries tend to make it as close to bourbon as possible, so their rye mash bills tend to be right at anywhere from 51 to maybe 60% corn. Whereas if you look at the stuff coming out of Indiana at MGP, they use 95% rye and no corn, only 5% malted barley. So it's a very different flavor profile. So when you talk about a Kentucky ryes, especially, the Old Forester in particular, they're kind of like a bourbonish rye. They're sweet as opposed to all spice or all citrus and all dill that you get out of kind of a high rye mash bill. So it's really the big difference when we talk about a barley rye or a Kentucky rye is the percentage of corn. There's usually an awful lot in it.
Was actually the reason why I brought it up. Their rye mash bill is 65 rye, 20% corn, 15% malted barley. So you get that, you get that corn in there, you get more of that sweetness, which I agree with you, Wes. I think it's a great rye. I think it's a very approachable rye too for somebody who's a bourbon drinker and wants to get into rye. I think that is a great gateway into rye. I would say that rye and the Wilderness Trail rye are 2 great gateways into rye because they're both Kentucky ryes. They have a slightly lower. They still have the classification of rye, but they have slightly lower and a little more corn to help balance it out. So you get a nice rye, you also get a nice sweetness in it as well. Fantastic.
I really think there's 3 ryes that stood out to me this year, Wilderness Trail being one of them. I'm not sure how they do it, but their 4-year-old stuff tastes like it could be 8 years old. It's sweet. It doesn't taste young at all. It's really good, really well done. Kudos to them. The 3 ones that I would point out, that one, Old Forester rye, obviously, and my favorite rye of the year is Cornerstone rye from Wild Turkey. I love it. I know Timothy's about to jump out of his chair over there because he wasn't quite as big a fan as me.
I'm out of my chair to grab the bottle.
I've killed a bottle of it, and I bought another one, and I'm halfway through it. So,
my bottle of Cornerstone on the way.
I would say hands down the best rye of the year.
New Riff?
Yes.
I haven't tried the Balboa. Yeah.
Oh my God, dude!
I haven't had that one either, but New Riff's right here.
It's unreal. That's my. I killed a bottle at a bottle share. That's bottle number 2. It's
awesome.
Outstanding.
So rye side? What's everyone's whiskey of the year so far?
Before we go there, can I talk about rye real quick?
Please talk about rye. Let's keep talking about rye.
So, I agree with Wes on the Old Forester, and I really like the MGP profile. I drink a lot of the Remus and the Remus single barrel and so forth. But this, can we talk about this?
Whistle Pig?
So we were talking about different levels of it, in whatever percent. It's 100% raw, right?
Talk about it.
You guys.
I've had this for years, and that's how much I drank. I just can't get into this. Any thoughts?
Wes, what's your give us a couple of the top whiskeys you've had this year?
Well, first of all, on the back on Whistle Pig, I think their best product to me is the Old World, the finished whiskey where they finish it in 3 barrels. But if I have to go, I'm actually working on an article right now. To me, for my personal favorite of the year, tasted 355 odd whiskeys, I would go with a Cavalon Vino Barrique Solist cask. It is everything they put out to me in their cask strength line is amazing. I have one of the rum casks that I'm tasting now that's pretty amazing. So on the world whiskey side, I would go with the Cavalon. If I'm looking at for a Scotch, I would go with the Bruichladdich Octomore 10.3. It's a pretty amazing whiskey. And if I'm going American, I would probably do it's between 2 that I had this year, a barrel bourbon batch 18 and a Russell's Reserve store pick, 2 of them that were pretty amazing. A Westport store pick and a 5280 store pick were both up there for me.
Yeah, I think I tried that when they had the same one at when you were in Louisville, right? They had it over at Butchertown Grocery.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a fantastic pick. I've honestly, I usually could put most of Westport Whiskey and Wine's store picks in my top 10 pretty much in a year. They just don't know how to pick a bad barrel over there. I'm not trying to pump up your head too much there, Timothy, since if you don't know, he does work at Westport Whiskey and Wine. But you guys are doing.
I appreciate it. Yeah,
he is a rock star as far as the palate goes, and you guys are a machine. That stuff is awesome. I most recently had a Knob Creek pick from you guys that was just awesome, and the Bullet single barrel pick you guys did was great.
That surprised the heck out of me. You know, the 2 things that I really liked. I think the one that surprised me the most, single barrel wise. Actually, these are both going to be single barrel picks. You know, because I'm a snob. The first one was we did 2 picks from Driftless Blend. They're a distillery out of Wisconsin, and they're aging in 25-gallon barrels. Usually, when you age in a smaller barrel, it turns into a hot oaky mess. And they balanced it out perfectly, where they were still able to age something for 4 years and churn a product that has characteristics of an 8 and 9 year, and it is just outstanding. It's full flavor and full bodied and everything that you want.
I tried that at the store, and I have to think that the cooler climate has something to do with that.
Agreed. Absolutely. But I thought that was remarkable. and it definitely put them on the map for me as far as I consider distilleries outside of Kentucky. And then the Remus Volstead, I think that's the best whiskey of the year. That thing blew my mind, time and time again. That was remarkable. I think it's the one.
That's a really good one. That's, MGP, for the longest time, everyone else was putting out MGP products in their own bottles, and then they finally decided to do Remus, the Repeal Reserve in particular, where they were going to they don't have a lot of aged whiskey left. And, from my standpoint, when we try to source it and you go straight to the source, there's just not much there. They've held back some of their best barrels for their own stuff, and it is good.
Yeah.
All 3 releases of Remus Repeal Reserve have been fantastic.
Oh yeah. Well, I would go as far as to say that is my top. That is my whiskey. That's my whiskey of the year. That's the best bourbon that I drank. That's the best bourbon I drank this year.
I looked for that for this tasting, and when I went to Westport, they didn't have it. I wasn't gonna go because it was a bit of a hike from where I was, and I decided to try it anyway. And I get in there and said, "No, we sold that." Damn it! Timothy just told me it was on the shelf.
It was so many times.
Nick, what's your whiskeys of the year?
Well, the distillery of the year is definitely Kavalan for me. I mean, I don't think you can really beat the Taiwanese at making single malt whiskey anymore. I used to put Japan at the top of that list, and I just think that they're beating everybody now, personally. My favorite rye, actually, and granted I'm biased towards my own city here, but Yellow Rose rye is my favorite. And it's really more or less like what Wes was talking about. It's more of a sweet rye. It's not like even their bourbon is actually a sweet mash bourbon. So they kind of go with the more sweet side of the palate rather than the drier, spicier, earthier notes that you would get from some of the others, including the one that we're doing tonight. So I definitely put that as my top rye. And really, Bill, I hate to say it because I know I'm going to come off like a fanboy here, but the Floridian you sent us, your sherry finished bourbon was pretty much the best thing I've had all year by far. I don't think that anything else I've tasted would even come close to that, but maybe we're all just biased. Maybe I'm biased. I don't know. But this is certainly not an advertisement towards you. You just pick your bourbon pretty good, man.
Good job memorizing that script. Your check is in the mail.
I'd like to just say, I'd like to be biased if you guys could get some of that up here to Michigan. That's all I'm saying.
I did talk about this in the most recent video I did for Modern Thirst, but Sealbox.com, they're going to have about 20 cases of our product for sale online here in the next probably week.
Unfortunately, here in H-Town, Tejas in general, you cannot buy whiskey online.
I'm pretty sure you can ship to Texas.
No, we can't buy it online. If I go to Total Wine, I go to ABC, Specs, whatever, they will not ship whiskey in Texas online. So, and believe me, there's people I would have liked to have bought that. I've even gotten those stuff like Calvados and stuff like that. Some stuff I would have really liked to bring over here to Texas, and they just don't do it, man. So
Bill,
he's back.
There, money you ask.
Hey, Nick, you brought up.
I missed the answers, Bill Scott.
You brought up Yellow Rose. I was wondering if you could touch on that a little more. I think it's really interesting that there's like a handful of distilleries that are starting to do sweet mash.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not super familiar with Yellow Rose. I do know that I've had a few products from them that I liked, but I was just curious if you could maybe touch on them a little bit more.
Sure.
For the match at least.
I'd be happy to. And really for the price, I think Yellow Rose, right, at least down here where we're at, I don't know what it'd be over where you guys are at around the U.S. here, but it's about $35 a bottle here. And it's almost sweet to the point of being syrupy, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's not completely overdone, but it's sweet. And it definitely has this like peppermint, heavy peppermint notes. And notes that you expect from the spicier rye characteristics, but it's just really, really. I don't know. I don't know really how to say it, but my palate just seems to really like it. Because again, I don't really like super dry bourbons. Wines, however, I like really dry. But bourbons, I like them, and ryes, I like them to be a little bit sweeter. And Yellow Rose, they literally use sweet corn mash for their bourbon, and they also use some of that in their rye as well. And you can really tell the difference. I mean, there's nothing dry about it. It's pretty sweet, almost like candy sweet. But again, I'm not trying to say that to make it seem as if like they just put simple syrup in a bottle and added flavoring to it. No, but it's certainly much more sweet than it would be to, let's say, the difference between sweet vermouth to dry vermouth. So. But you definitely get a lot of mint, you get a lot of pepper, and you get a lot of sweetness from the Yellow Rose. And with the bourbon, it's not so much different, except for that the pepper and the mint are much more subdued. You don't get so much of that, but you get a lot of like citrus. You get a lot of like let's say maple and vanilla and caramel characteristics that are very prevalent in bourbon, but much more amped up. Like it really pushes those to the front. So if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
That's great.
So, Bill, not to float your boat anymore, but the Proper Pour Whiskey Club here in the Springs, we tasted 100 different whiskeys this year and scored them. We usually have 6 to 8 tasters. Foregate did not come out as the #1 American whiskey. It came out as the #2 bourbon for the year.
That's awesome.
The #1 whiskey, the #1 American whiskey was actually in Nick's territory. It was a Balcones Texas single malt and finished in French oak cask.
Oh, that's
It was
awesome.
actually the highest rated American whiskey that we scored. The #1 bourbon that we scored was actually a 4-grain bourbon from Distillery 291, which, Bill, you've tasted, the Bad Guy Batch 3.
Colorado, right?
Came out as the
Speaking of small
highest.
barrels, right?
Yeah, and then the Foregate Sherry rum cask finish was the second bourbon finish bourbon of the year, so it was right up there.
All right.
Delicious.
I'll take it.
Wish I had that right now.
If only I had some.
Second that.
If only I knew where to get it.
You might know a guy, right?
I might know a guy. No, it's been an interesting year. I feel like Modern Thirst is doing really well right now. I want to get more into multimedia stuff. I want to keep going with the blogs because that's our bread and butter. But I know that more and more of the whiskey community is getting into Instagram and YouTube. So I want to make sure that we hit that and we're there for that, mainly to drive people to read the blog more often. So we're going to keep focusing on that. And I kind of also want to, one thing we've never really done because we don't interact a lot on YouTube or anything like that is we've never really created a Modern Thirst community of viewers. So we'll kind of work on some things like that. So the collector's coins are kind of step one, kind of getting people a little more involved with us directly instead of, kind of sitting in the background and just putting out content. So hopefully you guys will start seeing some more fun stuff that we can do with you. Our Patreon, we're kind of relaunching our Patreon site right now. The coins are part of it. So there's a coin level. If you join that, you'll get we're going to try to do 2 sets of coins a year. So either 2 or 3. If you join the coin level club, you automatically get those as soon as they come out. We've got t-shirt level. So you'll get t-shirt twice a year, coins twice a year as well. And then we might have a level above that, or maybe even in that t-shirt level, we'll send out samples of some of the things we review. Just, a 1 or 2 ounce sample, depending on what we have available to different Patreon supporters. So really want to kind of build the site a little bit and have a little bit more fun and interact more with our readers as well. So keep an eye out for all of that and make sure to check us out often here on YouTube at our Modern Thirst site and at ModernThirst.com. Guys, have anything to say in parting? We're coming up on the 45-minute mark, which I think is about perfect for a tasting.
Nope. Keep on keeping on.
Love you guys.
Really nice to get to hang out with you guys.
Great year.
It's fun.
Yeah, fantastic year.
Okay. Let's do it again soon. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, y'all.